claims that it would not retreat according to a proposal that was made by US President Barack Obama. Now, Obama had called for a peace plan and a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 borders, and that has created quite of a spat between the two parts. Of course, Netanyahu immediately and harshly rejecting that call and using this trip to reiterate that he considers those lines or borders, in his words, indefensible, a claim that is expected to repeat here in this address to the US Congress. He's also hinted that in his address to Congress today he'll also outline a new peace proposal, in his words, intended to head off Palestinian plans to seek UN recognition for an independent Palestinian state. Well, let's discuss the situation now concerning the United States and Israel and the significance of this trip that's being made by Benjamin Netanyahu to the United States with Nada Hashwi. She's a political analyst who's joining us live from Beirut. Ms. Nada Hashwi, if you can hear me, when we did see this spat between the two sides, President Obama making that call, which some inside the United States were calling that statement a courageous statement, but then he made some comments later in the AIPAC meeting, and those comments were regarded as retreating from his earlier statements. Do you think that there is a spat between the US and Israel now on how the Middle East conflict should be dealt with?
Definitely. What I see right now, first of all, let me mention exactly what Mr. President Obama has said. First of all, he had mentioned about the 1967 borders, and then immediately after that, he had said that his speech was misunderstood. But nevertheless, he had mentioned a couple of things that I really, we have to put the light on it, which is really important. And I believe if the Zionists, the Israeli, are a bit clever, they should take this into consideration. First of all, he had said that the people, the Arabs, the countries all over the world, they're running out of patience. That means, you know, the world are changing. It's not like before anymore. Second, he said that the old generation, which is the Palestinians, the Arab in general, the old generation is way different than the new generation, which it means we saw what happened in May 15th, which is something that was amazingly done. We saw people just willing to die in order for them to breathe a little bit of the Palestinian air. I believe he had said few things that we really need to show and bring the light on it. But definitely, let's not forget what Obama's going through right now. First of all, the pressure that he's going through from the Congress, and definitely the Congress leader, I believe Mr. Harry Reid, that he had actually criticized Mr. Obama greatly when he said in regards of 1967 borders, he had said that he has no right to actually preset these borders for Israel borders. Now, what Netanyahu is doing right now, he's just I believe Netanyahu and the Zionists all together, they're playing with fire, because what they're doing, first of all, they want, they're rejecting the 1967 borders. They want a Jewish state. They don't want to have Hamas be included in the new government, in the Palestinian government. They don't want any refugees to come back to Palestine. See, it makes you wonder, what does that mean in total? That definitely tells you war in big letters. What are they doing? I don't understand, because first of all, Israel, they should know that they are surrounded with Arab world, Arab countries. And I should actually, between brackets, I shouldn't say countries, I should say the new generation again, like Obama had put it. The new people, the young people, They're not going to keep quiet about what's going on anymore. We see the Palestinian refugees, they're not willing to stay as refugees anymore. By making Palestine a Jewish state, what does that mean? It means that they're removing every single right from every Palestinian all over the world. What about the 1948 and the 1967? What about everybody around the world? What's going to happen to them? What they're doing is playing with fire, plain and simple. Netanyahu is taking Israel into a dead end, I should say. He's not doing anything, but
right.
he's hoping that he's going to get the Congress approval of everything he's going to say tonight. He's hoping, he's thinking, they've been getting all the support from the I shouldn't say Americans, from the lobby, the Zionist lobby in the States from a long time ago, and now Obama's coming to say, no, I can't do this anymore, I have to change. But you know what? I don't think he's going to be able to do anything, because let's not forget, election is coming very soon, and the donors, the generous donors, they're criticizing him greatly. That means he's not going to get any money towards his election campaign, and that's going to put him into a deep hole.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, Ms. Hashmi, we are seeing pictures of Benjamin Netanyahu making that key address to the U.S. Congress, and a lot of people have been saying that this is a very key and important address for Benjamin Netanyahu, and in it he's going to make a very important standing on how the issue of Israel should be dealt with, on Israel's opinion, of course, by the United States. And when he has suggested that he's going to make a new proposal on how to resolve this conflict with the Palestinians, what do you think he means? Because if he's already rejected the two-state solution that's been proposed by President Obama, including, of course, the right of return for refugees, which the Palestinians have been calling for, Obama even didn't mention that, of course. Do you think that any proposal that he could put forward would be a proposal that would be practical or even would be supported by America?
By America? Well, by the Congress, I think so. By the Palestinian, I definitely don't think so at all, because let's not forget that the reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah now, they're emphasizing that they're going to do anything they can to keep that reconciliation happening, and if whatever he's going to come up with, it's not going to be any good to the Palestinian. I mean, if he's asking for, number one, a Jewish state, what does that mean? Where's the Palestinian stands for? They want Jerusalem to be their capital. What about the Palestinian? They're asking for that as well. See, they're going into the dead end. No matter what he proposes right now, it's not, see, all what he's doing right now is he's buying time. Netanyahu, he's playing again with fire. He's buying time into something. They're planning some kind of something, which is a war, which is going to be a very crazy idea, because a war this time of, like I said, it's not going to be like the 1967 Seven-Day War. It's not going to be even like 2006 war. This time, if he ever thinks of making a war with the Arab world, it's definitely going to be the end of Israel.
And two important developments right now is, of course, the Palestinian unity deal that you also referred to, which hasn't been welcomed. We're not seeing it being welcomed by either Israel or the United States, and also the efforts that are being made by the Palestinians to go to the United Nations and call for a recognition of a Palestinian state. Do you think that with these developments, it's actually things are turning in favor of the Palestinians, and Israel and the United States are feeling that they're in a hard spot now?
Well, you know, first of all, I know that the Western countries, I mean the European countries, they're actually they're with the Palestinian reconciliation 100%. Now, definitely and Obama even said it. President Obama said that if they want to go the UN is not going to recognize a Palestinian state with Hamas being in it, because definitely they consider Hamas as a terror group, which is definitely, it's not true. Now, where I see it going, you know, America is not going to go ahead and agree to it. Definitely from the lobby is going to put pressure on that. And like I said, the election is coming, and this is a very crucial time, because this is, and you know, Netanyahu is not an idiot. He's a clever guy, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He made it at this time, so he knows that Obama is going to be obliged to actually go ahead and do whatever they're asked for, which is the Zionist lobby.
Nada Hashwi, political analyst, joining us there live from Beirut with her comments. Nada, thanks very much for sharing your thoughts with us. As we were watching live pictures here on Press TV coming from Washington, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing a joint session of the U.S. Congress, making comments that, of course, will bring you more on what was said and what is being said right now by Benjamin Netanyahu there in the U.S. Congress as soon as we get the stories that are coming in as we speak. Do stay with us. We'll be back with more.
Takeout, the biggest crime.
It will create an economic crisis so deep that it will threaten us as a nation.
Through this operation, more than 400 defendants have been charged, and we have obtained 173 convictions in crimes that accounted for more than $1 billion in estimated losses.
Other than to give $700 billion to Wall Street. How do we even value the $700 billion in toxic assets?
Hello and welcome to Press TV's extensive coverage of the revolutions in the making in the region. This half hour will be zooming in on Yemen, as the latest news coming out of Yemen now is at least 5 people have been killed and many others injured, and this near the residence of a powerful opposition tribal leader. Now, there have been clashes between the government forces and supporters of a sheikh whose name is Sadiq al-Ahmar, and this has taken place in the capital in Sana'a. Now, of course, tensions are still quite high in Yemen, as no solution still has been found for the situation taking place. We know that President Ali Abdullah Saleh has negotiated a few different times with the Arab Persian Gulf states and said that he was going to sign, but of course at the end he has not signed any type of agreement and it continues to be a very, very tense situation in Yemen. Clashes have once again taken place today as people continue to turn out en masse in demonstrations asking for President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step down. We're going to switch over to London. I'd like to welcome a political opposition activist, also former advisor to the Yemeni Prime Minister, Mr. Mohamed Qubaty. Thank you so much for being with us, sir. So where do you see it at this point in time? There have been deals and counter deals, but at the end nothing agreed upon. And Saleh seems to just continue to answer all the opposition requests of him stepping down with brute force. How do you see this latest development, and how significant is this latest development today with this clashing taking place at the residence of a very well-known tribal leader? And welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. I think the situation is now, we are just at the verge of a full-blown civil war. The man has been, sending mixed signals all the time, continuing his ploys of procrastination and delay until he was cornered, and it was obvious that he was not going to sign the deal at all, and the initiative faltered and failed. Unfortunately, the door was kept open still for him to sign the deal, and instead of taking a sort of a reasonable route at the end, this was his last chance, he refused that. And I think he felt that with the pressure now coming from all the world, I think must have followed the statements given by the American Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, yesterday's statement by the European Union. I think this got him out of his rationality, and he started to use, as you said, brutal force.
Well, Mr. Qubaty, do you think, let me just jump in here. You mentioned different foreign entities and saying that they have, well, they've mentioned and trying to put more pressure on him. Do you think that the various entities, for example, like Washington, like London, that they are really putting more pressure on Saleh right now, or how do you see it?
Well, they haven't used the full, they have got a lot of leverage. They haven't yet, they are only sort of threatening, to use something, but that, I think, such a signal, got him worried, and it pushed him out to start, using, to push the country into a sort of, this is an armed conflict now. Since yesterday, we have got more than 12 people killed. Yesterday, at least 5, today already 7, So there are 12 people killed, and he's continuing, all these tactics, which his intentions is to push the country into a state of anarchy and turmoil, and just to tell to the West, well, there you've got, if you don't allow me to continue, then I'll just push it into that state whereby your interests are going to be in danger. But I think, the West has hesitated for a long time. It's time for them to bite the bullet and go forward, and start using real leverage on him. We haven't heard of any till now. There has never been any freezing of his assets, any freezing of his, funds outside. He's still importing, military equipment. They have not, put a ban on that. There was no ban on travel. There was till now his all atrocities and crimes against humanity have not been moved towards international sort of court or by the Human Rights Council. So all of these leverages are still there. They are just only threatening to use them. And I think once he heard that, he started to play the game from his side, that if you move, I'll just I don't think he should be allowed. He's holding the world at ransom. I think now they have got to come out clearly and just bite the bullet and confront the man really, Mr.
Qubaty, let me just read, we have some breaking news coming in. Let me just clarify for our viewers that they can see at the bottom of their screen, and this is from a tribal source, that actually there was a missile fired at the home of the dissident tribal chief earlier today. So, Mr. Qubaty, if it really was a missile that was fired, does it seem like Saleh is trying to take this situation to a whole different level?
Yes, I mean, the news I've received from Sana'a, I think the Ministry of Interior has been taken by the tribes. One of the most important entrance points from the north has been taken by the tribes now. So I think we're moving. I mean, the uprising was a peaceful one, and it's now taking a shape where there would be, there would be some confrontation and armed confrontation. Yes, we've heard about missiles being, you know, you know, aeroplanes hovering above the house of Sheikh Sadiq Al-Ahmar. But I think the thing is quite, the situation is very, very serious. It's very serious.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there are so many ways that the Western countries could have helped exert more pressure. One, first of all, mainly by cutting off his monetary supply source, freezing his funds, and putting other type of sanctions, for example, that they're talking about doing to Syria right now, or they have intervened in Libya. Why do you think that they haven't done that so far?
It's a big puzzle, actually. I mean, and that has actually made our people, the people who are in the streets, they can't understand this sort of double standard dealing, and that's why I've said till now it has been lip service. And since yesterday we have heard statements, and today there have been a lot of articles being written in that sense. But I think we want to see action rather than words. And I think the West interests, the interests of the West in Yemen, I think are of much more importance than Libya and perhaps Syria, unless Syria is related to the area because of Israel. But there in Yemen, if the situation goes out of hand, we in Yemen, we have received like 1 million refugees from Somalia, and we have got the whole of the Gulf of Aden separating us from them. If the situation breaks, I mean, the least numbers of refugees which should be going towards the Gulf would mount to 3-5 million people, and then the whole shipping lanes in Bab al-Mandeb would just come to a standstill. The situation is quite grave. I think they have got to understand that it's their interest now. It's not just, they're not going to fend or defend the Yemeni people, but they have got to come out and really put their foot down to defend their interests and the interests of the world. And I think the people, our brothers in the GCC, they have been insulted, and more than 3, 4, 5 times now. I mean, the man he was just playing like games, like childish games. He went and besieged the United Arab Emirates embassy, and there were envoys there representing 5 diplomats, ambassadors of all these big states and so on. And after that he comes out, and still the initiative was not at all pulled back. It was only suspended, giving him a chance to sign it. And instead of signing it, see what he's now moving. He's moving towards civil war.
What does that mean exactly, moving towards civil war? Will the Yemeni people, who up to now, they have basically decided not to take up arms against Saleh's government, is it likely that they will change their tactics and actually resist with weapons?
Obviously, if somebody is firing, missiles, on people's houses and so on, they wouldn't stand, peacefully now. That's obvious aggression. It's against law directly. I mean, the man is taking now the law into his hands, and he's just pushing the whole. That's his actually. I thought all the time, and I've perhaps mentioned it with you more than once here. His actual, exit plan depends on fragmenting the country, pushing it into a state of anarchy and disintegration, and then he wants to disappear with all the funds he embezzled and the crimes he has committed against humanity. And that's his plan. It has been there all the time, and he's now executing it on ground. He started executing it.
Now, Mr. Qubaty, you said that now the West needs to understand that they need to do something because of their own interests and also the interests of the world. Let's look at that a little bit more. Do you think that the interests of the West, when looking at Yemen, is in line with the interests of the world? Is it in line with the interests of the Yemeni people? Do you think that it's one?
Well, I think there is some convergence of interest there. If the situation in Yemen falls into complete turmoil and military confrontation, what happens to the shipping lanes, you know? I mean, there is 3 billion barrels of oil passing through that Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, at least. And if confrontation happens, I think, you know, those shipping lanes would be in danger. And then again, the Saudi Arabia is one of the most important, you know, producing oil producing countries. If a state of anarchy starts there, and then refugees start moving across the borders, it's going to cause a lot of havoc, I think, in the economy of the world.
And how concerned do you think that Saudi Arabia itself is at this point with the situation that's going on in Yemen? We know that the Saudis, they were involved with some of the other Arab Persian Gulf countries in trying to get a proposal for Saleh to sign. Of course, we also know that they wanted to basically exempt him from any type of prosecution. How concerned do you think that they are at this point in time?
I think I could have understood, you know, from early on when they didn't want one of the, you know, rulers who was ruling for 33 years. I think they didn't want him to be humiliated. I think they were trying just to protect him. But that could be understood. But once things go out of control to that stage, I think now they have got to weigh, is their interest of just, you know, preventing humiliation of one of the leaders who were at one time their friend, or worrying about, you know, spilling of such you know, events into their country. You have got to weigh one thing against the other. I think now things are going to, the fire is just approaching them now. It's not a matter of just you know, standing by and saying, well, we shouldn't allow, you know, the people to humiliate a ruler, you know. I think that is the question now, and I can feel that their interest, you know, if they want to stand besides their interest, not only in long and mid-term, even short-term interest now, I don't think in a civil war in Yemen would be in their interest at all.
So what do you think that Riyadh at this point in time would want to see? I don't want to say totally the international community, but basically from Washington and London, what do you think they will want to see at this point in time, if really they are afraid of this situation spilling over across its own borders?
I feel that they have left the door open, but the man has shown that there is no he doesn't act rationally at all. I think now I would expect them, you know, to convene again as GCC countries and push at least the file towards the Arab League, you know, and then from the Arab League things can go out towards the United Nations, at least as regards humanitarian, you know, basis, you know. But I think that is the easiest way for them to just, you know, wash their hands and say, well, okay, we are now, you know, pulling out this initiative and we are passing the file to the Arab League, at least, you know, as they have done with Libya.
Okay, Mr. Mohamed Qubaty, thank you so much for being with us, former advisor to the Yemeni Prime Minister. Appreciate you being with us. And viewers, that was a look at some of the latest events taking place in Yemen. Well, stay with us. We'll be bringing you all the latest right here at Press TV. I believe we're going to be switching over right now to Washington, where Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking. Let's listen up.
The size of the Palestinian state, but we'll be very firm on where we put the border with it. This is an important principle. Shouldn't be lost. We recognize that a Palestinian state must be big enough to be viable, to be independent, to be prosperous.